Hello and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about Venus in Taurus, natal placement through each of the houses. So with that being said, what does Venus represent? Venus represents attraction, love, material things, and beauty. It's all about value. And in your chart, your Venus placement shows what qualities of yourself make you attractive to others. So that depends on the sign, and the sign will show what it is. So Venus in Taurus means that you have Venus in the fixed Earth sign. So we'll talk about what that means. Now, Venus will basically show what makes you universally attractive. So like, what is attractive about you to all people, whereas other people's Venus placement will show what makes them attractive, but it will also show what they are attracted to, in terms of particular traits. So uh what will make you attractive to one person versus another will be dependent on their Venus placement, because it shows what they like. But generally speaking, our Venus placements show what makes us universally attractive as well. Anyway, with that being said, when you have Venus in Taurus, which is an earth sign, a lot of times it can show that what makes you attractive are for superficial reasons. Taurus can be more of a superficial sign in terms of its meaning because it's all about the material world. Now, it's also one of the signs of rulership of Venus. So Venus does actually very well in Taurus because Taurus is about aesthetics, and Venus can be a superficial goddess in terms of her meanings. So Venus and Taurus can make very attractive people. But what makes you attractive, or what makes them attractive that have this placement, are, usually superficial things like their appearance, their wealth, or certain talents that, people need from them, or things that give them value, because Taurus is all about value. That's why I bring up talents, because talents are things that give us value. With that being said, um, Venus in Taurus shows another thing, which I was just thinking about earlier and it just left my mind, but it's something about exclusivity, because Taurus is exclusive, and it's all about, being self-reliant. So what makes Venus and Taurus people attractive is when they're in a mind state that they don't need anything from anyone else. Kind of this bougie mindset in a way. Taurus is, the Empress energy in tarot. Empress has the Venus symbol on it in the tarot major arcana, and it's all about luxury. It's all about, self love. And so anyway, the next point about Venus and Taurus is that what increases your attractiveness is, self care, self love, investing into yourself, and also your taste of clothes, your taste of cosmetics, and how you choose to present yourself also is what is confirmed as being attractive from this placement. Or, for males, it just their way of grooming themselves, their taste of clothing as well. Taurus is all about luxury, quality, and taste. So generally speaking, what sets apart Venus and Taurus people is their sense of taste in art, music, clothing, design, and brands, luxury things. Now, not all people that have Venus and Taurus will be materialistic or superficial. Um, but for all Venus and Taurus people, their attraction increases as they learn to love themselves more, because Taurus is the sign that borders Aries. Aries is all about the self, and Taurus is the sign of value. So it it has a big part with having to do with self-love. Um, and so Venus and Taurus people are the most attractive. Like people when they find that ability to like love and value themselves and kind of put themselves on a pedestal, or when they don't feel dependent on others like validation, or when they don't need others, it also contributes to their attractiveness. So like that's the type of energy that Venus in Taurus creates, and like that's what makes them attractive. Now, of course, it will show, other things about them that are attractive, like their appearance perhaps, or like some sort of superficial things might end up being the things that make them the most attractive. Like they might realize that you know whenever they choose to dress up nice, that's the only time like when people want to show their interest or be attracted to them, or when they do their makeup, or when they just add superficial enhancements to themselves, or you know or stuff like that. That's when people are most intrigued, attracted, or like paying attention. So anyway, that is what Venus in Taurus represents. Venus is also about wealth. So when it's in its home sign, this is a good indicator for wealth. And generally speaking, those that have Venus in an earth sign, especially in this earth sign, they like to save their money, accumulate it. And, in general, they attract money in some capacity, like from some sort of like value or reputation that they have, or like some sort of attractive traits that they have helps them to attract more wealth. Or like, for example, if they had a business, um and there were clients for it, like their attractive traits help them attract more clients. That's what Venus and Taurus will show. Taurus is the sign of finances, and Venus is about attraction and beauty. So like it's showing beauty and like attractive qualities, whether that's charm or you know self presentation, helps them attract a lot of clients. So this could be like, for example, a beautiful model that starts a YouTube channel, and her looks actually would help her to like attract more viewers. It would be that type of like YouTuber. Now, the other thing is that Taurus is about finances, Venus is about feminine topics. So these individuals that have this placement are lucky because they can make money basically from Venusian topics. Venus is all about pleasure. Venus is all about femininity, So they can make money from feminine topics like hair, makeup, related businesses, um, dating coaching, but they can also make money from art, clothes design, etc. Like basically all the meanings of Venus, which is about love, beauty, art, and finances. So it's overall a great placement for finances and luxury, because they can make money from pleasurable topics. Because out of all the other placements of Venus, they are the ones that have the image to be able to monetize those topics. What do I mean by those topics? I mean all the topics I just covered, like femininity, clothing, makeup, art. Can even be about food, anything that has to do with taste, which could be, taste in art or taste like in a literal sense. So with that being said, now let's talk about a few people that are celebrities that have displacement, and then we'll talk about what it means to each of the houses. Johnny Depp has displacement. Adolf Hitler had displacement. Princess Diana had displacement. Ariana Grande has Venus in Taurus, and that's a key example of somebody that makes money not only from their craft and like their music, which could be art related, but also from their looks, and attracting business and fans and income to through I mean through what is that, feminine topics and through merchandise and stuff like that. So Kanye West is another person that has this placement. So that's an artist. Lana Del Rey has this placement, another musician. Leonardo da Vinci had this placement. Prince had this placement. Prince William had this placement. Amber Heard. Chris Brown has this placement. Mark Zuckerberg. Paul McCartney. Marlon Brando. Jessica Alba. Jose Bove. Charlie Chaplin. Che Guevara. Jeffrey Dahmer had this placement. James Franco, Melania Trump, Salvador Dali, Bono, along with a lot more people that I have not listed. One other one is Fergie, the singer. But with that being said, now let's talk about what displacement means through each of the houses. So if you have Venus in Taurus in the first house, this is indicating your personality, your appearance, or your identity. So Venus is showing that you are seen as somebody of attractiveness or intrinsic value or worth. A lot of times, this will manifest in the form of physically attractive traits or just physical beauty in general. Um, Another thing about yourself is, you could have a great sense of taste in clothing or self presentation, um, and just generally be artistic or have like good senses. Those with Venus and Taurus in the first house can be like creatives, and they just have a vision of how things should be presented very well. But in general, in your first house, it can also show that you have talents or worth that are coming from talents. So you could attract money to yourself through some sort of talents, and this is a part of your identity or your personality. Um, and usually, like, Venus and Taurus will show kind of effortless talents. So it's like things other people would naturally notice about you. So an example of an effortless talent is beauty. So it's like things that are just, the way that they are, that are just factual. Taurus is an earth sign. So it's all about that, what is like clear and visible, So you can have clear and visible traits or talents that people associate with you and like your identity. So next, this leads us to Venus in Taurus in the second house. Now this is a very financially oriented placement. Venus in Taurus in the second house shows somebody that needs to be financially independent in some form in order to feel secure and stable. Like, they would not feel at their highest worth or at their highest well-being if they are in debt, or if none of the money that they have access to is fully and completely theirs or in their control. So, like, in other words, if they don't have some sort of autonomy and this ability to make their own financial decisions, they would not feel well. So another thing though is that Venus and Taurus will attract wealth to them, especially through the topics that we talked about at the beginning, which could be artistic topics or topics related, or like fields and what's the word for that? Fields and like categories that are related to like beauty. They can make money in the categories of clothing and um, of what else? Cosmetics. Also dating coaching, anything revolving romance and relationships and counseling of that nature. And finally, they can make money from financial topics. Like, these could be the types of people that are financial analysts, bankers, or they just make money from money itself, and from even doing things or talking about things related to money. Uh, but yeah, these are very financially oriented people, but very financially stable people because they have this emotional need to have some sort of autonomy and freedom. These are definitely not the people that can be living paycheck to paycheck, because it will actually affect their like self-esteem and their like mental well-being. They need to be able to have this luxury to be able to step back from responsibilities, and from being able to step back and enjoy the fruits of their labor. It's very important for these people, and their attractiveness will actually increase as they um, gain those things. Now, Venus is also about things that we value. So, your Venus placement being in the second house is showing that what makes you attractive is when you're able to secure the things that you care about to the point where you no longer need others for validation or as a provision of those things. You'll notice that you attract a lot more romance in your life, and like people go crazy over you. And it's just unique to your placement. For some reason, like people just get wildly attracted when they feel like they can't have you because you don't need them or something. And it's just coming from the image and the luxury that Venus and Taurus brings. There's certain qualities that we can't really put on if they're not really a part of ourselves and our chart. So like a lot of people don't have this seemingly luxurious aura or this exclusive aura that you happen to effortlessly have from having this placement. So next, this leads us to Venus in Taurus in the third house. The third house is about communication. It's ruled by Mercury, which is the god of commerce and messages. Um, it's about trade. So another thing is that the third house will show transactions. So Venus and Taurus people can be very spendy people. Like they can spend a lot, not always in one, sitting, but like over the course of many transactions, they'll end up spending a lot of wealth. And what's pleasurable about this placement is that money comes in and out frequently for you. And just the movement or the exchange of finances can be a pleasant form of like energy or dopamine or gratification. Um, in general, Venus in Taurus in the third house shows that what makes you attractive is that you have something that other people want, and that other people uh, want to bargain for, or rather, like you just have this ability to bargain because you have certain qualities, beauty, or talents that give you this ability to bargain. So, Venus will also give you confidence in your communication for that reason, because it's like you always walk around knowing you have some sort of worth, and that like you can bargain for what it is that you want from others, whether that's coming from a romantic standpoint or from a financial standpoint. So these people do great as uh, commercial people, or like sales people, or traders, uh, and anything revolving possessions and finances, and just money. For the reason that I mentioned, which is like they just have this natural confidence that Venus bestows when it comes to their communication and when it comes to bargaining. Because for some reason, you always manifest situations where you're on the upper hands, or you're on the upper side of the table when it comes to the chips, the bargaining chips. Um, so anyway, that is Venus and Taurus in the third house. Next, this takes us to Venus and Taurus in the fourth house. The fourth house is a house about roots, foundations, and stability. Taurus is a fixed earth sign. It's also about stability, but in like a different way. Um, Taurus is about material stability. The fourth house is about emotional stability, and it's about things that last a long time. It's about security in our futures and stuff like that, and that's why it rules ancestry, and it also rules our descendants um, that will come after us, and it's how we raise them and how we build our home for future generations. Anyway, with that being said, those that have Venus in Taurus in the fourth house, they have a love for comfort and stability and security. They're also terrific nurturers. They know how to make others feel comforted in a very luxurious, or what's the word for that? Thoughtful manner. I'm looking for the word that basically means, they know how to cater for others. That's kind of the word that I mean. Because the fourth house is all about nurturing, and again, it's about emotional forms of comforts and security. So Venus is showing what makes you attractive in this case, and it shows that it's the fourth house. The fourth house is about nurturing qualities, and Taurus is about material things. So this is the energy of a provider. So what makes you attractive is that you're a great provider, and you don't just know how to like provide stability for people point blank. You also know how to do it in a loving manner or in a charming and attractive way. It seems like people find you sociable and personally relatable, and there's this added bonus of material generosity that you provide when it comes to love and when it comes to relationships. So all of this stuff is also related to your love style because Venus shows our love styles. In general, Venus is also about finances. So Venus being in the fourth house in Taurus will show somebody that invests their money for the long term, and they make a lot of wealth from that. Um, and they would likely invest a large amount of money into property or into their home as well because the fourth house is about the home. So most of your money could be allocated into real estate or into your dream house at some point. So next, this leads us to Venus in Taurus in the fifth house. This is perhaps the most creative placement of Venus in Taurus, if not, most creative placement in general, because the fifth house is creative. It's about creations. It's about, putting things out into the world for them to be seen. And Taurus is representing material things, and Venus is showing like value. So, and is representing material objects, is representing beauty, is representing things that people love and value. So not only do you have the fifth house in Taurus, but you have this very prominent planet that is visible in your chart in the fifth house and is like representing quality. So it's representing that you are creative, and like that people actually tend to take notice of your creations and they actually appreciate the things that you do or that you make, because whether it's art, whether it's music, whether it is products, it seems that people find them of use or they find them to be appealing. Venus is all about appeal. So you just have the creative Midas touch. This is a good way to explain, Venus and Taurus in the fifth house. The fifth house is also about being seen. So those that have Venus in the fifth house, they will have possessions that attract attention to them. So this could be a nice car at some point in their lives, especially if they don't start out successful. Maybe at some point they get to a point that they own nice things, and the fifth house is showing that they bring attention to them. The other thing that this could be is literally about clothing, flashy or luxurious clothing or prominent brands that turn people's heads. Um, Again, Taurus can be superficial. Now, if it's not about, superficial things for certain of you guys, it would just show that your physical beauty turns heads. But I feel like since it's the fifth house, not only can it be physical beauty because of the sign that Venus is in, but like the fifth house is about our character. So you can have a charming or appealing like character or personality, like way of carrying yourself that radiates self-assurance, that radiates quality, class, or luxury. It's like you could be very self-aware of how you carry yourself, and you carry yourself with high standards or high manners, and it's like really attractive or it draws attention. It just kind of distinguishes you. So that is Venus and Taurus in the fifth house. Next, this leads us to Venus and Taurus in the sixth house. The sixth house is about attention to detail. It's about how we organize ourselves. It's about routines and how we structure time. So Venus and Taurus in the sixth house, they want to have an aesthetically appealing lifestyle. They can be perfectionists and very nitpicky about very trivial things or very mundane, parts of life, like how they, organize their office or like their working space, or how they like decorate their, bathroom in their house, or their bathrooms in general, if there's plural. Like they could be very like perfectionistic or nitpicky about details that are having to do with aesthetics. So similar to the fifth house placement of Venus and Taurus, this makes these people artistically gifted, except they have more of a touch of worry and perfectionism than the previous house. And they apply this creative or aesthetic expression to all aspects of life, um, and towards their lifestyle. So, even when it comes to their phone, um, their smartphones, like they will pick out, a aesthetically appealing case that is like artsy and like fits, their personality and their style. They'll always make sure they have the perfect wallpaper on, their smartphone, and on their computers. They'll likely have decorations on their desk, uh, at work, or at home. And like just in general, like everything about them, everything that they do tends to be organized or like calculated in a way that's going to be aesthetically appealing or pleasant. And even how they organize their time, they want to live a luxurious lifestyle, because again, the sixth house is about day-to-day life and it's about routines. And then of course how we just organize things. So anyways, that is what Venus in Taurus in the sixth house represents. So next, this takes us to Venus in Taurus in the seventh house. Venus in Taurus in the seventh house shows that you know how to relate to others financially, on a material level. Um, your understanding of interpersonal dynamics is well refined. So you're very sociable and relatable. And also similar to the third house placement of Venus in Taurus, you have this excellent ability to bargain with others. And you just are able to do this with anyone. It's like depending on the person that you feel like relating to or starting a relationship to, you can find something that you have or that you can offer them, that you can bargain with them to gain their interest, or that you can offer them to start a connection or a friendship. It's like you find a way to always connect to others in like practical or meaningful ways, and people always feel like they can like get something of value from having you around. um, because in general, Venus shows what makes us attractive, and when it's in the seventh house, it shows other people tend to get this sensation of euphoria or like of self benefit whenever that you're around. So they end up liking you, and it just gives you, a favorable reputation amongst other people. But generally speaking, like people feel like you always bring value to the table. You're a good person to be around, because again, the seventh house is about the house of others, and you have this planet of value, pleasure, relationships, um, and sociability in the seventh house. And next, it's in Taurus. So uh, Taurus is about material things. Um, Taurus is about talents. Taurus is about money as well. So another thing is that these people have very financially related relationships. The relationships will be very based on finances and power dynamics, like who owns what and like who gives what to who, and like who offers the most in the relationship will have the most influence, and usually it'd be the Venus and Taurus person. Anyways, next, this leads us to Venus and Taurus in the eighth house. And what does this placement mean? Well, generally speaking, Venus and Taurus shows somebody that is attractive as a function of how much they value themselves and how much they invest into their self care, their appearance, and towards superficial matters. So these can be the most superficially attractive people. What does that mean? Well, superficial things are, things such as looks, things such as, fame or like reputation, things such as image. So you guys have the gift of being able to create a luxury or high tier image for yourselves. But when Venus is in the eighth house in Taurus, this means it's in the house that is opposite of where Venus wants to be or where Taurus wants to be. The eighth house is about the values of others, and the eighth house is the house where Venus is debilitated. So it just shows that although your attractiveness comes from your self worth and how much you value yourself. At times, you struggle to to value yourself because you will sometimes cater to what you perceive other people value. And sometimes you'll compromise your own worth or values by trying to appeal towards other people. And in general, it's not necessarily going to manifest in negative ways for all people, but it shows this energy of balancing your own values and your own self-worth, and also making it appealing to others. So you guys have a good understanding of like psychology and what people find desirable, and you guys try to use your best qualities and kind of adapt them to what other people will find most attractive. So this can be actually one of the most attractive placements of Venus in Taurus, um, because they will value themselves, but also they will tend to want others like to value them for those things. So it's like they're not just satisfied, in their own bubble and just, you know, having high self-worth. It's like they want everybody else to also value them. So this is the energy of Venus and Taurus in the eighth house, and sometimes it can lead to seeking validation, and like it can lead to low self-esteem when you do that. Which is the downside of when Venus is in the opposite house than what it rules, and when Taurus is in the opposite house than where it's comfortable. Anyways, next, this leads us to Venus and Taurus in the ninth house. The ninth house is about inspiration. It's about knowledge. It's about expansion. It's about abundance. Those with Venus and Taurus in the ninth house, they're always expanding their abundance, or like you're always attracting more and more abundance through life as you gain more wisdom and as you gain more knowledge and business savvy. These people are some of the most knowledgeable people in the realms of modeling or of art, of beauty and like materialistic subjects, or things having to do with finances. Anything really related to Venus can really apply in this case. And these people will be the most knowledgeable about it. But for the most part, it will manifest as like the material realm and very superficial, type of topics. And so these are the go-to people to learn from or to get advice from of how to run your business, or how to create a appealing product, or how to change an existing product to appeal to the masses. Because they just have an innate understanding or wisdom when it comes to beauty, desirability, artistry, and taste. They just have exquisite taste. Now they just also have a knowledge of so many different tastes and genres. That's the other effect that is going to happen in Venus, in the ninth house in Taurus. Now, what do I mean by genres? Because genres can apply to different things. So it's genres of art, genres of music, genres of anything else that could be related to artistic topics. So it could be styles of clothing as well. But the reason why they have knowledge of genres is because the ninth house is about history. It's it's about things that we learn. It's about information. So Venus in the ninth house will show somebody that possesses information and like history of art, of beauty, and of like different tastes of things. So they're just very cultured people, very knowledgeable about high society topics sometimes, or just very certain topics that might be related to art as well, or towards clothing, or towards any type of like those superficial Venus related things. And anyway, the other thing about Venus in the ninth house is it can show somebody that makes money from teaching. And it could be teaching about those Venus topics that we covered in the beginning, and just a little bit earlier. um, but just in general, they possess knowledge that gives them worth, and also that is financially advantageous. So it's like they teach things that actually will make other people money. And so it's like a very attractive kind of business model for them to become teachers, because it's like the knowledge that they hold is related to the theme of Taurus, which is about like how to make money. And sometimes it could be about like a topic that's not literally about money, but it's like a topic that allows for a lot of income. So anyway, that's Venus and Taurus in the ninth house. Next, this takes us to Venus and Taurus in the 10th house. The 10th house is about reputation, and Taurus is about finances. Now, a very prominent figure that has this placement, or that had this placement, was Bernie Madoff. And this was the person that had the infamous Ponzi scheme um, in the stock market. But, essentially what his story was is that he was this very well respected financial advisor, financial trader in the New York Stock Exchange. And, he ended up using his reputation for bad reasons, for getting people to invest their money, and, just going off with it, and lying to them that they had made returns. That's essentially, what a Ponzi scheme is. But anyways, Venus in the 10th house in Taurus just shows somebody that has a very favorable reputation. So what ended up happening with Bernie Madoff, for example, is that for a long time, like he was not investigated or held into account, because he had such a great reputation from his previous history and his previous accolades in the financial sector. The financial sector, the New York Stock Exchange, this whole world of um, trading and of investments is broad, and there's a lot of people that are into it. So a lot of people had respect for this person. And generally speaking, those that have Venus in Taurus in their 10th house, they will have a pristine image, very pristine reputation. These could be the most highest ended people, or like the most kind of exclusive type of people in terms of their image and their status or their importance. Venus is the planet that rules women, and women are kind of like the gatekeepers to love and to sex, which is what men want and what attracts men to them. And so women have this ability to close themselves off or open themselves up. So they have this power of exclusivity. And so having Venus in your 10th house is just showing you have a similar kind of expression with your public image. It's like you're exclusive, and like certain people don't feel like they have access to you, especially when it's in Taurus, is because you might be like way out of people's league, or at least that's how your image appears. And the key word is image, because an image is not necessarily reality. So keep in mind, this is just how other people might perceive you. They might perceive that due to your worth, or due to your accomplishments, or due to something that might be superficial in nature, that you're out of their league in terms of your interest. Like they feel like you might not be interested in them, or they can't relate to you unless they have similar type of placements or exclusivity. Or unless they just have good synastry with you, and they might relate to you on a other tip. Like they could be related relate to you more as, friends and on a personal level, so then they don't worry about your image as much. But people that don't know you, they might worry about your image because you seem so high up. And again, is just an image or a projection. So this could just even be based off the way that you look. Like people, just based off your beauty, for example, which is a expression of Venus and Taurus in a lot of cases. Like people just give you this high end or um, bougie or out of the league kind of image. And that was the example also with Bernie Madoff, who had this very pristine reputation in the financial world. Like this was the number one respected financial um, person in the world at one point. And you see in his story that he used it in negative ways, but I feel like it's such a perfect example of Venus and Taurus in the 10th house, and how it like allowed him to carry out that negative uh financial scam that he was doing, unfortunately. And Bernie Madoff is somebody that has a lot of Taurus placements, so it's no surprise how much it's his story is related to finances. Um and it's also a reason why I felt it was a good example for this placement. But next, this leads us to Venus in Taurus in the 11th house. The 11th house is about individuality. The 11th house is about freedom, autonomy, and just basically independence, because it's ruled by Uranus. Uranus is rebellious, it's independent, it's self reliance. At least that's what it means in terms of the placement. And it represents rebellious qualities as well. So, anyway, those that have Venus in Taurus in the 11th house, they will manifest situations in their life of being financially independent through entrepreneurship or self employment. Because not only does Venus in Taurus show self reliance and self sustenance on a financial level, but the 11th house is also about self reliance, and it's about being your own boss. That's why traditionally, although nowadays Uranus is ruled by is ruling Aquarius in the 11th house. In the past, traditionally, the 11th house was ruled by Saturn. Saturn is about responsibility. So the reason why it's ruled by Saturn is because the 11th house is where we take responsibility for ourselves and where we don't let anybody else control us or be our boss. That's why it's so rebellious. Even when the planet Uranus was not yet discovered, it still, had that reputation. Anyway, so having Venus in this house shows somebody that attracts finances to themselves, as we were saying with Venus and Taurus, and they would do it in like a very entrepreneurial or self-reliant way. They will become their own boss. They will create their own side streams of income, and usually